Hi.
Hello guys, if you're brand new to my channel, my name is Nikki and this is my book nook. Y'all, this was a weird month. Today we are doing my June wrap up. This month feels like it went by so fast. I was just really busy. I went on 2 separate vacations. I kind of had stuff going on every weekend, which is not normal for me. I didn't get to read as much as I normally do, but I had some really great reads this month, some not so great reads. I went into like the worst reading slump I've had, I feel like, in my entire life at one point. But yeah, it was an interesting month and I just want to talk about it with you guys as always. Pretty much all of these books have their own dedicated video on my channel, so if you want to hear any more, you can go and watch that. But yeah, let's just get into it. So first of all, I started the month off right. I continued my goal of reading 1 Colleen Hoover book every month until I finish all of her books. Only 1 a month because I'm trying to savor it, and also just because she tends to hurt me, and I feel like if I read more than 1 in a month, every one of her books you kind of got to sit with. They make you question your life, your morals, what you want, everything you thought you ever wanted. So I'm just doing 1 a month and I couldn't wait. It had to be the first book I read this month. I don't have the physical copy with me because I actually loaned it to my sister. But yes, the first book I read this month was November 9th by Colleen Hoover. This, I feel like, is the most talked about, the most recommended book of hers. Maybe It Ends With Us is more recommended, but I just see those 2 over and over and over again, and it was really good. The concept was really interesting. This book follows a girl named Fallon. The book pretty much starts off just like all of Colleen Hoover's books. It just gets right into it right from the beginning. The book starts out, she is having a lunch with her father. Her father is a total jerk. She's kind of telling him about her next move in life. She's planning to move to New York literally that night, and he's just like crushing her dreams, is telling her like, give up, there's no point, like why are you trying to do that? And this boy that is sitting behind them in the restaurant ends up overhearing this conversation, gets up, swoops into the booth, and pretends to be Fallon's boyfriend. His name is Ben, and pretty much stands up to her dad for her. And Fallon and Ben end up totally hitting it off, but both of them are very much in places in their life right now where, like, Ben is in school, he wants to write a book. She, like I said, is literally moving to New York that night. So neither one of them are like wanting to get into a relationship, but like literally they just met, sparks are flying, so they're like, what are we supposed to do here? And Fallon has always had a rule, like her mother has always told her, don't fall in love until you're 23, because that's like when your brain is fully developed, whatever. So they basically make a pact that they are going to, every year for the next 5 years, they are going to meet back in this same location at this cafe at the same time, and they are just going to spend 1 day together for the next 5 years until they're 21. They are going to have no communication in between. They are not going to have each other's phone numbers. They've blocked each other on all social media. No way to contact each other, but they're just going to have this 1 day every year. And in between, they give each other goals, like things they're supposed to accomplish in between, like personally. And it's really, really interesting. Ben's goal is that he is a writer. That's what he's going to school for, and he wants to write a book. The one type of book he's never seen himself writing is a romance. So the whole idea is that he is going to write a book based off of this concept of a couple that only sees each other once a year on November 9th every year. And so like he's writing the book, but it's also like about them, and it's so good. I really liked this book, but I didn't feel like I loved it as much as everyone else loves it, just because I found it to be so incredibly frustrating. Like, I just wanted to throw the book at times. I'm like, dude, like, I think the concept, again, is so interesting, and just like, I am 100% a person where I get it. Like, achieve your goals, live your life before you try to like get into a relationship and all of that. But I'm also just like, love is so rare that like when you find it, like, what are you doing? Take it. Like, so many times I'm like, just give each other your phone numbers. Like, why are you making this so difficult? Like, it just frustrated me to no end. And also, as always, like, there's a big Colleen Hoover plot twist, but I felt like the plot twist with this book, there was just like so much to it that at a point I felt like it just got to be like kind of unrealistic. And for a lot of people that doesn't matter, but for me it's something that I'm just like, if a book gets to a point where it's unrealistic, I don't want to say I have a hard time enjoying it, but it's just, you know, it's kind of like, okay, especially like in a contemporary romance, you want to feel like you can relate to it. And when it gets to a point where it's just so like kind of out there, like, I don't know. This is all to say, like, it was a great book, a solid 4-star. I will literally read anything Colleen Hoover puts out, but it just wasn't like my favorite of her books so far. Ugly Love still has that title times 1,000, my heart and soul. But yes, November 9th by Colleen Hoover, would totally recommend it to anybody. The next book I read this month was Hideaway. This is the second book in the Devil's Night series by Penelope Douglas. I have talked about the first book in this series, Corrupt, to a point that it's getting obnoxious on this channel. I am so obsessed with this series. It is so, it's a very polarizing series. You're either going to love it or it's just not going to be for you. There's some very like dark themes to this. Like every trigger warning you could imagine is in this. Like this is just kind of that kind of series where you gotta throw your feminism out the window and just let yourself enjoy the ride. Like it's just, it gets crazy. I would describe it as like a dark romance thriller. Pretty much this series, like the first book in the series, Corrupt, is totally like a standalone novel. If you don't want to commit to a series, you can just read that book. But, so how do I explain this? So basically the concept of this series is it follows these 4 boys called the Four Horsemen. They live in this very like rich community. They go to this school and they're stars of the basketball team. It's very like Gossip Girl-esque because like all the boys, their parents are all like very influential people in the town. So these boys, like I said, they're in a group called the Four Horsemen. They wear these masks. They just kind of wreak havoc on the town, especially on Devil's Night, which is the night before Halloween. And everyone's afraid of them. Nobody says anything to them. They just kind of are able to get away with it because their parents are such important people. They pull a lot of weight. Like no one wants to mess with that. So the first book in the series kind of talks about how at one point 3 of the 4 boys end up going to prison on Devil's Night. And so now like this entire series, each of the books focuses on one of the 4 boys. They're now out of prison and they're kind of trying to like settle the score, like seek revenge on like certain people involved in that night. And just every one of these books is so good. It flashes back and forth from past to present. So the first book, Corrupt, is really the book that like sets the story. And like you can technically read all these books as standalones, but I'm like, okay, I really think Corrupt is the only standalone. I feel like if you're gonna read other books in this series, I would say you gotta read the whole thing, but people do it, so it's up to you. It's really hard to explain. This is just the second book in the series. It follows Kai and this girl, Nick Banks. It's very mafia-esque. This book has an arranged marriage aspect to it, a best friend sister aspect to it, kind of forbidden love, enemies to lovers, like past to present, angst, tension, lots of great things. I love this book because I love this whole series, but I would give this one a solid 4-star as well. It's not my favorite in the series, but still so freaking good. Yeah, I literally can't say enough things about this series. Literally, just go read it. So next up, I did a little bit of a reread. I have been wanting to reread this series for so long now because it is my OG, it is my first love. It is the book that made me fall in love with reading, made me fall in love with romance, especially like fantasy romance, vampire romance. Do you get where I'm going? I reread Twilight. Dude, I just feel like I've been wanting to reread this for a while. I've read this series all the way through several times over, but it had been many years. But I still, like, now that I really got back into reading in the last 2 years, I still find myself in some way or another comparing like every book to Twilight, just because, like I said, it was my first love. Like no series is ever gonna compare to like the way I felt the first time I read Twilight. Like it was such a thing, and I'm just like, okay, I feel like I need to reread it because now I'm like 23, but I was a little scared because I'm like, am I gonna feel the same way? Like what if I think it's dumb? Like I was just really nervous about it, but I reread it. This is literally my original copy. It is rough. It is from like 2008 or 7, I think. The spine is like so cracked, but anyways, I reread it and I got back all the nostalgic fuzzy feelings, man. I don't know, people love to hate on this series, but screw that. I stand by Twilight. I love Bella. Like, I understand the first movie was not done the greatest, but like Bella as a character, people love to give her crap, but she's just a normal girl. She's an average 17-year-old girl in high school. She's not the most popular girl in school. She's just Bella. She's just normal. That's the whole point of her. She's not supposed to be like the coolest, most amazing, like badass or anything. She's just a normal 17-year-old average girl. But I think she's got some, like, her personality is fun. She's got some like funny one-liners and like, she's just really cool. She's really mature, and I vibe with Bella. I totally stand by Bella. And Edward, like I said, my first book boyfriend, I couldn't love him more. Definitely there were, like, rereading it, some major insta-lovey aspects to it that like I would not vibe with now if it was a new book. I pretty much despise insta-love. It just makes me kind of like, ugh. I don't know. November 9th has a little bit of that, which is probably why it like wasn't my favorite Colleen Hoover book, but I accept the insta-love in Twilight because honestly, if you were a 17-year-old girl and this hot-ass immortal vampire was in love with you, like what do you think you would do? You would be instantly in love. So I don't stand for the Twilight slander. I love her. I will stand by her forever. I'm so excited to read the rest of the series because like Eclipse and Breaking Dawn, it just gets so much better. This is a 4.5 star for me just because like those, you can't give them the same rating. I feel like the series gets so much better. But I'm actually vlogging myself rereading this entire series. It's probably gonna come out like next month. I don't know. I'm kind of taking my time with it. I'm not reading it all the way through, but once I finish, I'll throw all the clips together and throw it up. So if you're interested in seeing that, subscribe, post notifications, all the things. It'll be coming out soon. The next book I read in the month of June was The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. I had been hearing about this book for a while. I really wanted to read it, but I had just been putting it off because it's not a book that I would typically read. I've always been so like fascinated by the concept of like what happens when we die and like the meaning of life, like things like that always really fascinate me. But like typically like just this type of book is not something that I'd be like dying to reach for. But I finally did it because so many people have talked about it, and Father's Day was coming up and my dad is also a reader and I had a feeling it was a book he would really like. So I'm like, let me check this baby out, and then if I like it, I will give it to him. I did end up giving it to him because I really liked it. This book follows a girl named Nora pretty much at the time that she decides she wants to end her own life. She's made that decision, and once she's made that decision, she ends up waking up in a library referred to as the Midnight Library, and she sees her elementary school librarian teacher, and she explains to her that in this library are books that are all different versions of her life, basically alternate realities if she would have made different decisions at different points in her life, like showing what her life would have ended up being like. And it's just such an interesting concept. I just love that idea of like alternate realities, and the idea that like one choice or decision can just cause a ripple effect and like change your entire life, which is so like not hard to believe at all. Like I think that's totally a thing that happens. So Nora, just specifically, there were so many things in her life that she ended up not doing that she regretted. That's kind of what ended up leading to her decision. Just over time, she just has felt like she let so many things go. She's now like 35. Like she just has a lot of regrets, she just feels like she's at a place where like she's useless. Like she should have just, so many things, so many opportunities she didn't take that she should have taken. I mean, she was really talented in music. She was in a part of a band that was really close to signing a record deal that she ended up backing out of. She was a super talented swimmer that could have made it to the Olympics had she stuck with it. She had the opportunity, she ended an engagement right before she was about to get married. She ended up ending that relationship. Right after that, she was supposed to move impulsively to Australia with her best friend and ended up backing out of that. Just like a lot of different decisions like that that she didn't end up making, that now that she's in the Midnight Library, she has the opportunity to see like what her life would have been if she had done those things. And so the librarian explains that like if you find a life where like you're happy and this is what you want, like you can choose to live that life. So it's just really cool like seeing all the different like stories that she goes to, the way that other things are affected in her life because of different decisions that she made, the way other people are affected, the relationship she has with those, like her parents and her relationship with them and her brother, like in real life were strained over like various things, and now like seeing how that changed if she would have done different things. It's just really, really interesting. It's one of those books that like just makes you think so much, and like you finish it and you just have like a whole new appreciation for life, just kind of a reminder that like the little things are what counts, and like just live in the present. And like, you know, it's just one of those kind of, I don't want to say it's a feel-good book because like I mean, maybe a little bit. It's definitely kind of like at times like a little dark and depressing because like obviously this decision she's made is like a very not happy one, but you get to see like, I don't know, you just get to see like how no matter what decision you make, like everything kind of can always work out in the end. It's never too late to start something new. Just like that whole concept, I really liked it. I gave this 4 stars as well, and I would totally recommend it. Next, I couldn't wait any longer. I had to read the next book in the Devil's Night series. I literally couldn't get off my mind. I'm trying to pace myself because like I know I'm gonna be devastated when this series ends, but like I had to do it because the guy that this book's focused on, especially, I just like, I needed to know more. It had been set up for so long. This is kind of focused on like the bad guy of the group, Damon, and his story, his backstory is just so interesting. Like he is literally the most misunderstood character I have ever read. You know, there's always like the misunderstood kind of broken bad boy. Like he's the definition of that, just like times 1,000. Like I love him with my heart and soul. The girl in this book, Winter, is my favorite character of any of the books. This book is one like that has a lot of people have read it without having read the entire series, so I feel like you could if you really wanted to. Pretty much like I said, 3 of the 4 horsemen were arrested on Devil's Night one year. The reason that Damon was sent to prison that night is because he participated in acts with an underage girl, which just so happens to be the girl in this book, Winter Ashby. She is the mayor's daughter. It was a very scandalous thing, but that is what sent him to prison. So we're kind of reading this whole series so far just thinking like he did this horrible thing to this girl, but we learn that there's like so much more to their story. Like they have so much more of a past than we realized. That night was not quite what we realized. Just so many things. I love this book so much. I think it was my favorite in the series so far. Like I literally love this series so much. Just go read the Devil's Night series, y'all. I don't know what else to tell you. And like I told y'all, I got into the worst reading slump of my life this month, and it was entirely because of this baby. Penelope freaking Douglas just kills me. I wanted to read the next book, but like I said, I was trying to pace myself, and after that, I just could not for the life of me figure out what to read. Like nothing sounded good. I tried to start this baby next. One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. Sorry, this was 5 stars. I don't know if I've been giving the ratings or not. I always forget to do that. But One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. Y'all, I'm so disappointed because this book was so highly anticipated for so many people, but like me especially, I really liked Red, White, and Royal Blue. Again, it's another book that I don't feel like I loved as much as everyone else just because I found it so unrealistic. You might sense a theme here. Like if a book is unrealistic, it's hard for me to see past it. There was just a little too much like butterflies and rainbows for me, but overall I loved the story. I loved the love story to it. I thought the concept was so interesting. Like it was really cute, but the aspects of that book that I didn't enjoy, after reading this book, I think I'm realizing that like I just don't think Casey McQuiston is for me. There's just like a quirkiness to her writing that I can totally see like a lot of people loving and vibing with, but it's just not my cup of tea. I like it to some extent. It's just the way she writes. She very much captures the like millennial voice of saying like in every other sentence, but I don't want to read that in dialogue in every other sentence. She also is very like character focused. Like and I enjoy like side characters. I enjoy friendship, but there's just so much like dialogue in her books between these side characters that really doesn't add anything to the overall story. And it gets to a point where I just feel like it makes the book like way longer than it needs to be. Again, just the like butterflies and rainbows. Like I just feel like her worlds are just so idealistic, and I'm just like, I'm all about representation, but like representation just for the sake of representation bothers me. I feel like it's just kind of lazy. It's like if you're going to have it like, I don't know if I'm explaining that correctly, but I just like, I don't love when it's just, let's just throw every possible like type of person, type of situation into this book just to have representation when it doesn't really mean anything. I don't know if I'm explaining that correctly, but yeah, I just don't love that. My main beef with this book though, and the thing that made me stop reading it 100 pages in, a massive spoiler for this book is like literally in the description, like in the second line. Like it is a huge deal, and I figured because it was in the description so early on that it wasn't gonna be that big of a deal, but it literally took like 100 pages to get to that spoiler, and once it was revealed in such a like, oh my gosh kind of way. I'm like, okay, but I'm not surprised by this because I knew it. And it really just made me mad because it's such a like interesting thing that like if I wouldn't have known it, my mind would have been blown, because there's so many hints being dropped in the beginning of the book that are supposed to make you like wonder and be like, oh, what could that possibly mean? But I already knew what it meant, so it didn't make me wonder. So then whenever it was revealed, I just, at that point, I was just done with it. I didn't love it. I just don't think Casey McQuiston is for me, and I hate to say that because like I want to love it. I want to love their books, but I don't know. I think I'm just gonna stick with Red, White, and Royal Blue. I just don't think it's for me, but I think, I don't know. What did y'all think? If you read this book and you thought it was amazing and you know what I'm talking about with the spoiler and like it gets better from there and I just need to finish it, let me know, but I couldn't do it, so I put it down. Obviously, after that DNF, my reading slump was just slumped even further. I literally didn't know what to do. At that point, I picked up like 3 different books, read 1 chapter of them, and I just couldn't get into any of them, so I went back to my tried and true, the book I knew. There was no way it wouldn't pull me out of my reading slump. I read Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. My best friend Leanne is not a reader at all. She's literally never read anything, but she's a huge movie watcher and she is such a fan of the Harry Potter series. And she finally, like 6 months ago, I convinced her to start reading Harry Potter just to like get her into reading. And it has taken her like 6 months to read the first 3 books. So proud of her, but she finally started Goblet of Fire right as I was in my reading slump. And I was so jealous as she was reading it. Like she was actually flying through it like pretty fast for her. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna pick it up and I'm gonna read it. And it got me right out of my slump. I read the first like 200 pages and then after that I moved on to some other books and I've been like kind of reading a couple chapters every night. I'm just about done with it, but I've read this book so many times over. It is my favorite book in the series. I just feel like this is the book where the series just goes to the next level. Like the kids are no longer kids anymore, like they're 14. It just, I don't know, it's like the book that like Voldemort comes back. I love Cedric Diggory. I love like the aspect of the Triwizard Tournament, the Yule Ball, just like so many things. This book just like is pure happiness for me. I love it so much. I love the whole Harry Potter series. Like it is just my baby, but Goblet of Fire is my favorite and I appreciate it for getting me out of my reading slump, for reading it like the 6th or 7th time, so thank you. So after my little Harry Potter endeavor, I just simply gave up on trying not to read Penelope Douglas. I knew it's what I needed. I knew that I needed a Penelope Douglas book. I was trying. I don't want to like fly through her entire like library in half a second, but I had to do it. I remembered I had this baby on my shelf. It just came out this month, Trist 6 Venom. It is her newest book and I'm like, okay, fine. I won't read the Devil's Night series. I will read this instead. And it was so good. This is a girl on girl romance that I actually have never read besides One Last Stop. One Last Stop was my first like full-on girl on girl romance and this was my second and it was so freaking good. It is a bully romance, just like Devil's Night and most of Penelope Douglas's other books. There's always some sort of like enemies to lovers or just some angsty like forbidden aspect to the relationship. This book is about, it's very much like I said in my review of it, it is like Gossip Girl meets Outer Banks meets Shameless. It is about this girl named Clay and this girl named Olivia. They both go to this academy. Clay is like the most popular girl in school. She's the captain of the lacrosse team. Olivia is also on the lacrosse team, but Olivia is the Dan Humphreys of this situation. She comes from the other side of the tracks, but she's like a super committed student and she goes to this prestigious private school with Clay and they literally have absolutely hated each other for like 4 years. Like as long as they've been going to the school, they've hated each other. Clay is like such a bully to Liv, like says the most horrible things to her. They fight so much, but Clay is like not accepting that the reason that she acts that way towards Liv is because she's actually like attracted to her. And Liv is openly like out and gay and like everyone knows that, but Liv like, yes, Clay bullies her, but Liv like does not take any bullshit. Like she does not go and cry. Like she is a badass. Like, so their like fights are just like so intense. It is so angsty and like finally it like comes to a head and it's just so, it was so good. It was so steamy. I was like, it was wild and obviously it's very like scandalous. I didn't mention it, but it's like a Catholic private school that they go to. So like it's very frowned upon to be in a relationship with each other. Also like Clay has kind of a boyfriend and like I said, she's like the most popular girl in school and like their whole situation would not be okay with her parents at all. Liv, on the other hand, like she has 5 older brothers. Both of her parents have passed away. So their whole thing is very like Shameless-esque. Like their household is just like craziness. And I said that it's like Outer Banks because there's a very much like a Pogues versus Kooks aspect to it. Like Clay and like her, like all the rich kids of the academy are like, they're called the Saints. So it's like the kooks, and then other side of the track are called like swamp, so it's like swamp versus saints, pogues versus kooks. So Liv is swamp and Clay is saint, and yeah, it's really, really good. So I would totally recommend this book if you like any of Penelope Douglas's other books. Don't let the girl on girl intimidate you. I promise you will love it. And I would give this one a 4 stars. I don't know if I already mentioned this, but like it's very hard, nearly impossible to get a 5-star for me. So a 4-star read is like a very, very, very good book. Just wanted to put that out there. And the last book. These videos are always so hard. I love them so much, but I just like, it requires so much talking, and by the end I'm like blah, blah, blah. I don't know how to speak. But the last book that I read this month was Half-Blood, the first book in the Covenant series by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I am beyond obsessed with the Blood and Ash series by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I literally like the best book I had read in 10 years. Whenever I finished Crown of Gilded Bones, I just had such a like hole in my heart. I'm like, I want to read some other stuff by JLA. And this series is like definitely the one of hers that caught my eye the most because it has a Greek mythology aspect to it. Greek mythology is like one of my absolute favorite things to read in books. I have like an entire shelf dedicated to Greek mythology, and this book and this series are super interesting. It is literally like Percy Jackson meets Shadowhunters meets Crave, if you've read that, the Crave series, because there's kind of like a academia aspect to it. Super good. I gave this book a 4.5 stars. There is a love triangle, there's forbidden love. I really can't like go into explaining the series because like I just filmed my review for this book actually, and I'll post it before this goes out. If you want like the spoiler-free synopsis, just go watch that, because honestly like the world is like so crazy and so big and like so much to explain that I can't explain it here. But yeah, super good. If you like Greek mythology, if you like Shadowhunters, forbidden romance, it's a super good read. It's definitely more like YA. Blood and Ash is very much adult. This is for sure a YA, nothing too scandalous, but I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I gave this a 4.5 out of 5 stars, and I'm super excited to read the rest of the series. I can tell it's just gonna get better from here. But yes, guys, I think that is it. I think that is everything I read this month. But yeah, if you guys read any of these books, let me know all of your thoughts in the comments down below. But yeah, I think that is it for me this month. I'm hoping next month, this month was good. Like I definitely read some really good things, but it was just kind of weird. Do you ever just feel like your reading you've been doing has just been kind of weird? You've been in like a bit of a roller coaster, like don't know what you're doing, like your mood is just kind of off. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if that makes any sense, but yes, I am anticipating that July is going to be fantastic. Going to read more of the Covenant series. I'm going to finish ACOTAR. I'm committed to doing that this month. Currently, I'm reading People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry, so that review will be coming out very soon. But yes, that is it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see y'all later. Bye.